You stand in the room and you feel it, that hollow ache beneath your ribs. You said what they wanted to hear. You smiled when you didn't mean it. You bent yourself into a shape that would please them, and still it wasn't enough. The applause faded. The approval you chased dissolved before you could hold it. And in the silence that followed, you were alone again, not with yourself, but with the ghost of who you pretended to be. This is the cage most people live in, not one made of iron, but of eyes, the eyes of others, watching, judging, weighing your worth on a scale you did not build, with measures you do not understand. Confucius once walked among people who wore masks made of duty, honor, and expectation. He saw them bow to kings, bend to crowds, sacrifice their own voices to earn a place in the kingdom of approval. And he said, simply, "The superior man is distressed by the limitations of his ability. He is not distressed by the fact that men do not recognize him." He was not speaking of arrogance. He was speaking of freedom. Because approval is a debt you can never repay. The more you give of yourself to earn it, the less of yourself remains. You become an echo, a reflection, a servant to opinions that shift with the wind. And Confucius knew, the wind does not care about you. He understood something the world still refuses to see, that the need for approval is not love, it is fear. Fear of being unseen, fear of being unworthy, fear that if you stop performing, you will disappear. But what if the opposite were true? What if the moment you stop seeking their eyes, you finally see yourself? If this reflection resonates with you, stay with it, let it settle. Wisdom is not rushed, it unfolds in the quiet spaces between thought and action. The journey we are beginning is not one of rebellion or isolation. It is not about rejecting others or retreating into pride. It is about something far more difficult and far more liberating, learning to stand still in your own presence without needing the world to applaud. But first, we must face the lie we've been living. The lie is beautiful, seductive. It promises you belonging. It whispers, if you are good enough, kind enough, successful enough, they will love you. And when they love you, you will finally be whole. So you try. You craft the perfect image. You say yes when your body screams no. You hide your flaws beneath performance and politeness. You become a mirror, reflecting back what others want to see, hoping that in their approval you will find yourself. But you don't, because approval is not a foundation, it is sand. The more you build on it, the more you sink. Confucius watched this tragedy unfold in every court, every village, every home. He saw people sacrifice their integrity for praise, their truth for acceptance. And he said, "The man who seeks only to please others will never please himself." Not because self-pleasure is the goal, but because a life bent entirely toward external validation becomes a life without center, without roots, without direction. You become a leaf, carried by every passing opinion. One day you are loved for your silence. The next you are condemned for it. One day your ambition is admired. The next it is called greed. You cannot win, because the rules change with every voice, every season, every stranger's mood. And still you try, because the illusion is convincing. The illusion says, you are not enough as you are. But if you adjust just a little more, you will be. So you adjust, and adjust, and adjust again, until you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. This is not growth. This is erosion. Confucius did not teach rejection of others. He did not preach isolation or indifference. He taught something far more radical, that your value does not live in their eyes. It lives in your alignment with virtue, with truth, with the quiet integrity of your own character. But how do you find that alignment when you've spent your whole life looking outward? How do you return to yourself when you've forgotten what yourself even feels like? The answer is not where you think. Confucius said, "The superior man acts before he speaks, and afterwards speaks according to his actions." This is not a rule, it is a map. It shows you that your worth is not determined by words, not yours, not theirs. It is determined by who you are when no one is watching, by what you do when there is no reward, by the choices you make in the silent, unseen hours of your life. This is the principle the world has forgotten, that self-mastery is not about controlling others' perceptions. It is about governing your own inner landscape. Most people live backwards. They seek validation first, then try to build a self worthy of it. They want the applause before the rehearsal, the trophy before the training, the love before the virtue. But Confucius taught the opposite. He said, "Become worthy first, not in their eyes, but in your own. Not through arrogance, but through discipline. Not through loudness, but through consistency." When you live this way, something shifts. You stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What is true?" You stop performing for the crowd and start building for yourself. You stop measuring your worth by their approval and start measuring it by your own alignment with what is good, what is just, what is real. This is not easy. The world will resist you, because the world benefits from your need. Your need keeps you obedient. Your need keeps you small. Your need keeps you buying, chasing, proving, begging. But the moment you withdraw that need, the moment you stand in your own center and say, "I do not require your permission to exist," you become dangerous. Not to others, to the illusion itself. Because a person who does not need approval cannot be manipulated, cannot be controlled, cannot be sold a false version of themselves. They are free. And freedom, Confucius knew, is not a gift given by the world. It is a state you claim within yourself, one small act of integrity at a time. But to claim it, you must first face what you've been avoiding, the silence within you, the one you've been drowning out with their voices. There is a voice inside you that you have not heard in years. It does not shout. It does not demand. It does not compete with the noise of expectation and opinion. It simply waits, patient and still, beneath the surface of your daily performance. This voice is not your ego. It is not your fear. It is not the internalized judgment of everyone who ever made you feel small. It is you, the part of you that existed before you learned to be ashamed, before you were taught that your worth was negotiable. Confucius called this your shin, your heart-mind, the seat of moral intuition and inner knowing. He believed that every person is born with it, but most people spend their lives burying it under layers of social conditioning and self-betrayal. You bury it when you laugh at jokes you don't find funny, when you nod along with opinions you don't hold, when you chase goals you don't want because someone else told you they matter. You bury it so deeply that eventually you forget it's there. And then you wonder why you feel empty, why success feels hollow, why even when you win their approval, it changes nothing inside you. It's because you've been feeding the wrong hunger. The hunger for validation is insatiable. No matter how much you receive, it is never enough. Because it is not food, it is a drug. And like all drugs, it requires larger and larger doses just to feel normal. But the hunger for alignment, for living in harmony with your own inner truth, this can be satisfied. Not through grand achievements or public recognition, but through small, daily acts of integrity. Confucius did not ask, "What will make me famous?" He asked, "What will make me whole?" And the answer was always the same: virtue. Not the virtue of appearance, but the virtue of action, the kind that lives in private, that no one sees, that earns no applause, the kind that, when you lie down at night, allows you to rest, because you know in the deepest part of yourself that you did not betray who you are. But this knowing requires something most people are unwilling to give. It requires you to disappoint them. This is where most people turn back. Because disappointing others feels like violence. It feels like cruelty. It feels like you are tearing apart the very fabric of connection and belonging. So you stay, you bend, you swallow your truth and serve theirs. And you tell yourself it is kindness. But Confucius saw through this. He said, to see what is right and not do it is cowardice. Not malice, cowardice. Because when you abandon yourself to please another, you are not being selfless, you are being afraid. Afraid of conflict, afraid of rejection, afraid that if you show them who you really are, they will leave. And maybe they will. But here is what Confucius understood and what the world refuses to teach you. The people who leave when you stop performing were never yours to begin with. They loved the mask, not the face, the service, not the soul. And losing them is not loss, it is liberation. Because every moment you spend maintaining a false version of yourself is a moment stolen from your real life. Every smile you fake, every boundary you don't set, every truth you don't speak, these are not small things. They are the architecture of your existence. And if that architecture is built on the foundation of their approval, it will collapse. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. It will collapse in burnout, in resentment, in the quiet, suffocating realization that you have spent your entire life living for an audience that was never satisfied. Confucius did not tell you to be rude. He did not tell you to abandon compassion or reject community. He told you something more nuanced, more difficult, that true respect for others begins with respect for yourself. When you honor your own boundaries, you teach others how to honor them. When you speak your truth, you give others permission to speak theirs. When you stop pretending, you create space for real connection, the kind that does not require performance. But this requires courage, the kind that looks like stillness, the kind that says no without apology, the kind that walks away from applause to sit in the quiet of your own company. And in that quiet, you will hear it again, that voice waiting. The voice does not tell you what to do. It tells you what is true. It does not give you a plan. It gives you a direction, a North Star, a sense deep in your bones of what aligns and what does not. Confucius called this Ren, often translated as benevolence or humaneness, but it is more than that. It is the felt sense of rightness, the inner compass that points not toward success or approval, but toward integrity. When you live by this compass, the world becomes simpler, not easier, but simpler, because you no longer have to calculate. You no longer have to predict what they want, how they will react, whether they will accept you. You only have to ask yourself, is this true to who I am? And then act accordingly. This does not mean you become rigid or unfeeling. It means you become anchored, rooted, no longer swaying with every breeze of opinion, but standing steady in your own knowing. Confucius did not admire stubbornness. He admired constancy, the ability to remain yourself through all seasons, through praise and criticism, through success and failure, through love and loss. He said, "The superior man is firm in the right way and not merely firm," meaning it is not enough to be unchanging. You must be unchanging in alignment with what is good, with what serves not just yourself but the greater harmony. This is where most misunderstand freedom. They think it means doing whatever you want, without consequence or care. But that is not freedom. That is chaos. True freedom, the kind Confucius taught, is the ability to act from your center, from your deepest values, regardless of external pressure. It is not the absence of discipline, it is the presence of self-discipline. You do not need their permission, but you do need your own alignment. And that alignment is built not in moments of grand decision, but in the small, daily choices no one else sees. The truth you tell when lying would be easier. The boundary you hold when giving in would be faster. The silence you keep when performing would earn you praise. These are the bricks of self-mastery. And slowly, one by one, they build you a life you do not need to escape from. But there is still one question left unanswered. What happens when you stop seeking approval and no one notices? What happens when you do the inner work, set the boundaries, speak your truth, and the world continues exactly as it was, indifferent to your transformation? This is the test Confucius rarely spoke of directly, but lived through completely. Because he was not famous in his lifetime. His teachings were not celebrated. He walked from kingdom to kingdom, offering wisdom, and was turned away again and again. And yet he did not stop. He did not beg. He did not perform. He simply continued, knowing that his value was not contingent on their recognition. This is the loneliness of self-mastery, the realization that your freedom does not come with an audience, that your integrity will not be rewarded with applause, that the moment you stop seeking their eyes, you may find yourself standing in a silence so vast it feels like exile. But it is not exile, it is return. Return to the only relationship that was ever truly yours, the one with yourself. Confucius said, "The superior man is satisfied and composed. The inferior man is always full of distress." Not because the superior man has everything, but because he has stopped asking the world to complete him. He has stopped waiting for external validation to grant him permission to be whole. He is whole already, not perfectly, not without flaws or doubts or struggles, but whole in the sense that he is no longer at war with himself. He is no longer betraying his truth to earn their comfort. And in that integrity, he finds something the approval seekers will never know: peace. Not the peace of having no problems, but the peace of having no inner conflict. The peace of looking in the mirror and recognizing the person looking back. This is what freedom feels like. It does not arrive with fireworks or fanfare. It arrives quietly, like dawn. A gradual light that spreads across the landscape of your life, revealing what was always there, but hidden in the dark of others' expectations. You do not need them to see you. You only need to stop hiding. And the moment you stop hiding, everything changes. Not because the world shifts, but because you do. There is a moment in every transformation that feels like falling. You have let go of their approval. You have set the boundaries. You have spoken the truths. And now you stand in the open space where their validation used to be, and it is terrifying. Because you realize they were never the problem. You were. Not because you were broken, but because you gave them a power they never asked for. You made them the authors of your worth. You handed them the pen and then spent your life trying to rewrite the story they wrote about you. But they were never holding the pen. You were. They were only mirrors, reflecting back what you already believed about yourself. If you believed you were not enough, their rejection confirmed it. If you believed you needed their approval, their withholding of it became proof of your inadequacy. But none of it was real. Confucius knew this. He said, "The faults of a person are consistent with their type of character. By observing a person's faults, you may know their heart." He was not speaking about judgment. He was speaking about perception, about how we see the world not as it is, but as we are. When you are desperate for approval, you see rejection everywhere. When you are at peace with yourself, you see only opportunities for connection or the freedom to walk away. The shift is not in them, it is in you. And this is the turning point. The moment you stop asking, "Why don't they see me?" and start asking, "Why do I need them to?" What are you protecting by seeking their approval? What fear are you avoiding? What part of yourself have you abandoned that you are asking them to validate? Because approval seeking is not about love, it is about avoidance. Avoiding the responsibility of being yourself. Avoiding the discomfort of standing alone. Avoiding the painful, necessary work of building your own foundation. But the foundation cannot be borrowed. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be earned through performance. It can only be built by you, in the silence, in the small, unseen moments where you choose truth over comfort, integrity over applause. And when you build it, something miraculous happens. You stop needing them, and you start meeting them as equals. Not above, not below, just human to human. So what does this look like in the morning light, in the ordinary hours of your ordinary life? It looks like this. You say no without a long explanation, without apology, without dressing it up to make them feel better. Just a simple, honest no, because it is not aligned with who you are. It looks like choosing your own company over a gathering that drains you. Not out of bitterness, but out of respect for your own energy, your own peace. It looks like speaking up in the meeting, even though your voice shakes, even though you know some will disagree, because the truth you hold matters more than their comfort. It looks like letting the text go unanswered, letting the invitation pass, letting the expectation dissolve, without rushing to fill the space with explanations or justifications. It looks like small, quiet, unremarkable. But Confucius knew, the smallest acts of integrity are the ones that build empires within you. He said, "The man of wisdom is never of two minds. The man of benevolence never worries. The man of courage is never afraid." Not because these men are superhuman, but because they have done the work. They have aligned their inner world with their outer actions. They do not need to be of two minds, because they know what is true. They do not need to worry, because they are not betraying themselves. They do not need to be afraid, because they are not dependent on outcomes they cannot control. This is the promise of self-mastery. Not perfection, not invincibility, but alignment, simplicity, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are living in integrity with yourself. And when you live this way, something unexpected happens. People begin to trust you, not because you are performing, but because you are consistent, authentic, real. They may not always agree with you. They may not always like you. But they will respect you, because you respect yourself. And more importantly, you will respect you. You will lie down at night without the weight of betrayal, without the gnawing sense that you are living someone else's life. You will close your eyes and feel something rare in this world: peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer at war with who you are. There is a river that runs through every life. Most people stand on the banks, watching it flow, waiting for permission to enter, waiting for someone to tell them the water is safe, the current is kind, the destination is worthy. But Confucius knew, the river does not wait for approval. It flows because that is its nature. And so must you. Not in arrogance, not in isolation, but in the quiet, steady certainty that your life is yours to live, that your worth is not a thing to be granted or taken away, that freedom is not something you find in their eyes, but something you claim in your own silence. When you stop seeking approval, you do not lose connection. You find it, real connection, the kind that does not require you to be smaller, quieter, more convenient, the kind that meets you as you are and says, yes, this, you. When you stop seeking approval, you do not become selfish. You become whole. And from that wholeness, you can finally give. Not from obligation or fear, but from abundance. When you stop seeking approval, you do not stop caring. You start caring about the right things, about truth, about integrity, about the quiet, enduring beauty of a life lived in alignment with your own heart. This is the freedom Confucius spoke of. Not freedom from others, but freedom from the tyranny of their opinions. Freedom from the endless chase. Freedom from the performance. Freedom to be still, to be yourself, to walk through the world without apology, without explanation, without the desperate need to be seen. Because you have already seen yourself, and that is enough. The wind will continue to blow. The voices will continue to speak. The world will continue to judge, praise, criticize, forget. But you will remain, steady, rooted, free. Not because you conquered them, but because you stopped needing to. The river flows, and so will you. Save this reflection. Wisdom grows in silence.